this thing on. Alright. Fix yourself. That's an idea that I hold on to very dearly and still hold on to quite dearly. It's an idea that I got from a guy named Jordan Peterson. And of course, he's not the first guy to come around with this idea, but I think Jordan Peterson is one of those guys who puts across good ideas mostly in a very accessible way. I think that is the value of people like Jordan Peterson, even though many would say, oh, what? He's not saying anything new. Well, he's getting people to hear it and practice it. So, hey. So if you've seen Jordan Peterson content, you would understand this idea of fixing yourself rather than trying to fix the world and other external things, because you don't have control over those external things, but you do have control over yourself. And that is, of course, a much better way to live life. However, there's another aspect to this idea of fix yourself. Of course, fixing yourself means that you don't go around trying to fix others. But sometimes people forget, and I would say myself included, that we might forget that we can't expect someone or something else to fix us, even if we're not finding our fulfillment in trying to fix other things other than ourselves. In other words, we might fully acknowledge that we need fixing. Thing is, we're kind of waiting for something or someone else to come in and do the fixing for us. I think it's quite unfortunately human that it's very tempting to always live in a state of waiting for the next best thing in life that's gonna make everything feel better. And I think a universal problem that, especially among young people, faces this idea that, yeah, I'm really miserable now, but if I just found the right person, then everything would go away and this person would complete my life. This idea that once you're in a relationship, all your problems are going to go away. And I guess it's kind of hard to challenge this fallacy, because sometimes God does put people in your life that help you to change for the better, and he works through them. And when that's happened before, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking it's going to happen again. And then we forget why we're in that situation again in the first place. Because obviously it didn't work out the first time, now did it? But all that explanation aside, I think it still boils down to the same idea as why you don't try to externalize your problems and fix other things instead of yourself. Because waiting on someone or something else to come and fix you, that's not in your control, and that's not something you can bank on. You can't sit around waiting for a Prince Charming or a knight in shining armor to show up and save you. And you can't wait around for some beauty to show up in your castle and tame the beast that you are. You know, if Edward had never met Bella, would he have ever found happiness? And perhaps, yeah, in this story, they were destined for each other. But, see, that's the thing about leaving it up to fate. It's not something we can control. Even our poor brooding vampire spent a few hundred years moping around until Bella showed up and magically changed his life. And see, unlike Edward Cullen, we don't have hundreds of years to spend waiting around moping, waiting for someone to come and save us. There's a reason why Catholicism's about faith and works. Why we believe in not just pure predestination, but also free will. Because to a certain extent, our fate and our salvation with that, it's a choice that we must make for ourselves, along with all of the actions that come along with that choice. And the real art here is finding that balance between trusting in God's plan and taking personal responsibility. And I guess that's why prayer and surrender is so important, to be able to first discern and then ultimately submit to God's will, to God's plan for us, and to pray for the grace to be able to do so correctly. And as I talked about in my video about Saint Joseph, it's only in the silence that he'll be able to hear God's whispers. So anyway, all that's to say is that I've always had similar thoughts about priesthood, thinking that being a priest, that would solve all of my problems. But I know that if I were to become a priest, I know that deep down it would just be me trying to escape the life that I have, thinking that priesthood is going to fix everything. And at the same time, even though it's a bit harder to see or admit, my whole life's mission of wanting to make sure that I become a good father and a good husband to make up for what I didn't have. And while that may be virtuous and, of course, also very important to aspire towards, how much of that is me externalizing and putting off the need to accept and be okay with what and who I am right now? How much of that is externalizing the work that needs to be done now as what I am? I think I've learned by now that if I can't be a good person right now, neither will I be able to be a good father or husband or even a good priest.